So, Dead by Daylight is a game that has a lot of killers and has introduced very many killers as of late. I've heard some people make the argument that some of the new killer powers are not original and are just cobbles of other killers, which is a completely valid point to have. However, today I wanted to go over every single killer and see how original every killer really is, and just how far the behavior devs can actually take the killer power designs. Now, this isn't me saying that they're absolutely running out of ideas. I don't think anyone's actually saying that. My point is we're at a point in this game where every single power is going to be compared to another killer. It's just inevitable. Now, I'm going to go through every single killer in the game, and we're going to see exactly how original they are. Now, this is actually a response video, technically speaking. I'm not going to name who it's a response to. I have no ill will towards them. I just had a problem with them saying Chucky's power wasn't very original, which, if you really want to be reductive, it isn't. However, I'm going to show how you can do that with virtually any power in the game, and how there's a reason why we don't get too many super original powers. Because, as I say in this video, the most original power in this game is actually Nurse, in my opinion. It's the most original power, and there's a reason why they didn't do it again. Apart from her, the second most original power is probably Skull Merchant. Once again, it's a reason why we don't get too many original powers. On top of that, super original powers have the problem of being too complicated and ruining the game balance in general, as I just said with Skull Merchant and Nurse. I'm not saying Skull Merchant is really good, I'm just saying that she can do a lot of things really well and can be very frustrating to play against. But yeah, I also mentioned in here that we go into a League of Legends situation where we're at a point where we have so many killers that every killer is going to be a derivative of another killer in some way, shape, or form. There's never going to be a truly original power anymore. I just don't see it happening. It's going to be able to be compared to some other power in some way, shape, or form. Now, I know the video's long, so if you don't want to watch my explanation of every killer and how I don't think they are that original or are that original, you pretty much saw the whole video right here. But if you want to stay for it, I really do appreciate it. And I hope you have a good one. Before you get into it, like, sub, and all that YouTuber stuff, or don't. I don't really care. And also follow the Twitch if you want. Links below. But I love you guys. And all the comments I've been getting on the most recent Chucky videos, I appreciate all of that as well. But yeah, I'll see y'all at the end of the video. Bye. Now, there's an old video I used to watch all the time. It was by Shammy. For those who don't know who Shammy is, he's like an owl guy. He does reviews on YouTube. He posts videos like once a year. But he did a review for Overwatch and Overwatch versus Paladins, which isn't the most original thing in the world, but it's like an hour-long review. And one of the things he says in that video is he's talking about Symmetra and Moira, and how if you really break all of everything in Overwatch down, and this is old Symmetra, by the way, the one with the point and click, not the one that like you hold the trigger button and like it just locks onto the enemy and does damage. He basically says maybe the reason why, yeah, not the beam. Well, it was a beam, I guess, but it did what it did now, except for, like I said, it locked on to people. But he basically says how her and Moira were the most unique characters in Overwatch as far as abilities go. And maybe it's not because no one thought of it. Maybe it's because someone did and was like, no, that's a bad idea. So bad that you can't lift bodies with her anymore? Wait, you can lift... Oh, yes, you could lift bodies with her. Huh. Forgot about that. But yeah, because that's something I think people tend to forget. It's like sometimes the developers don't add things to games, not because they don't think it would work or that they didn't think of it. Maybe they didn't add it because they did think of it and it was terrible. Like, I mean, League probably would have been a better game if Viego wasn't in it. Just saying. So yes, every killer in the game. We're going to go through this. I might be a little less active with chat because I do have to edit this out later. And that was probably what you heard was the intro. But before we start, chat, go ahead and say hi to YouTube. Hi, YouTube. Hello. So, Every killer's power. Trapper. Trapper's power is very simple. He puts a bear trap down, and if a survivor steps in it, they are trapped, and he can hit them or they can get out. That's it. All the power is. Nothing too fancy, nothing too original. I mean, he's a trap character. Wraith. Turns invisible, comes out of invisibility, gets a minor speed boost, and M1s. That's it. All power. Hillbilly. Revs the chainsaw. He can, once the chainsaw is fully revved, he can dash forward with it. If he hits a survivor, he downs them instantly. That's it. Nurse has 2 blink charges. She can hold the charge to get distance. When she releases the charge, she blinks forward, going through all objects. Now, I'm only going to say this because this is the thing about Nurse that I don't think people are going to like. Nurse is probably the most unique killer in the entire game. And I think my statement earlier of it's not that no one didn't think about it, it's that they did. I think Nurse is the perfect epitome of that idea. How much has this character alone made this game have to bottleneck certain things because she exists? I digress. Huntress, our first range killer. He winds up a hatchet. She throws the hatchet. The hatchet hits you, it injures you. That's it. Myers, a stealth killer with a tier-based system who basically changes forms as he stalks you, and then he can insta-down you. So far these first 5 killers, nothing, like all of these are technically speaking unique because they were all with the game. I think now is when we start getting into some of the territory of killers that have been derivative, for lack of a better word. And I don't mean that as a bad thing. I feel like every killer in this game offers something different. And once again, we'll get into that more with some of the more recent killers. The Hag places down a trap. If the survivor activates the trap, she can teleport to the trap and hit them. She is slower than the other killers because she can teleport. She's not supposed to chase directly. She's supposed to use her traps. So that's technically taking a concept from Trapper, where he places down traps, but using it in a different way. So I don't think that's like, oh, it's just Trapper with extra steps, or they just took Trapper's power and added to it. I don't think that at all. I still think it's generally pretty unique. Doctor. We're not going to talk about OG Doctor because OG Doctor was weird, like a stance switcher that didn't really work. So we're not going to talk about that. But new Doctor, he can charge up a static blast, and if you're in his terror radius when it goes off, you scream. He can also send out a thing of shock therapy that will stop you from performing actions for about a second or so if he hits you. This includes vaulting, healing, and whatever. You also build up stacks of madness, and once you're at madness 3, you can't do anything, and you have to snap yourself out of madness. Once again, that's a really unique killer. There's no other killer like Doctor in this game. Kind of. And we'll get into that here in a second. Bubba, the cannibal. Revs up a chainsaw. Once fully revved, if he hits a survivor during his chainsaw dash, he downs them. Huh. That sounds familiar. Now, to be fair, Hillbilly was supposed to be this game's Bubba before Bubba was added to the game, so yeah, that one's a weird case. Now, that being said, even with them being, quote, the same character, they are different. Hillbilly's dash is more of a mobility tool. It's used to go across the map and get, like, snipey kills, right? Back revving is more important, I feel, on Hillbilly than it is on Bubba. Bubba does a chainsaw sweep, where he sweeps the area in front of him in a slower motion. And he can also hit more than one survivor because he doesn't have to stop. Once he hits you, he can keep going, so he has more snowball potential. So even with these two killers being the exact same, when you really tell someone what their power is, like, they're still different. Freddy! Okay, this one's going to be complicated. Freddy is constantly in the dream world. If he hits a survivor or 60 seconds pass, the survivors fall asleep. Once the survivors are asleep, they can be affected by Freddy's power. Freddy has two powers. He has the dream snares, which he can place on the ground, that if a sleeping survivor walks over the snare, they are slowed down momentarily. They also scream. He also has the option to add dream pallets with certain add-ons. Dream pallets will only be shown to survivors if they are asleep. If a survivor drops a dream pallet, it is not treated as a real pallet and still slows them down through the animation. However, Freddy is not stunned or stopped in any way by the pallet. Freddy can also teleport to generators that have not been completed yet. Survivors can also wake themselves up by either failing a skill check on purpose or by going to alarm clocks set around the map that will allow them to wake themselves up. Or they can go to other survivors that will snap their fingers and also wake them up. There's a lot to say. He puts you to sleep and he has traps that slow you down. You can also teleport the gens sometimes. Freddy is actually pretty unique too, honestly speaking. At the end of the day, though, me saying all of that made him sound more complicated than he is. Honestly, it's put trap at loop and M1 them when you can. Teleport when you get the info to do it. That's it. That's the whole power. There is no killer like him before this, though. To a degree. And that's because none of the other killers before him had a slowdown mechanic built into their kit. But you could argue he's kind of like Trapper and Hag because he's a trap killer. I would argue he isn't, but I can see someone saying that is the case. But at the end of the day, still pretty unique. Pig. The pig can crouch, going undetectable, and this allows her to activate a dash ability. When she dashes and she hits a survivor, she does a really loud roar, she charges up at a faster rate than normal, and damages the survivor. While the survivors are downed, the pig can put a reverse bear trap on their head. Once the reverse bear trap is on their head, it will not activate until a generator is completed. Once completed and activated, the survivors must then go to jigsaw boxes placed around the map to try to take the reverse bear trap off. If they do not get it off in the allotted time, they are instantly killed. So, yeah, that was also a lot. But some of these are gonna be more complicated. Trust me, once we get to Skull Merchant, oh my god. Clown. Clown has two bottles. He can throw his purple bottles, which are the tonic, which I'm sorry. Yeah, the tonic. I believe it's called tonic. I mean the man, don't know. He throws the tonic. It slows down survivors. I'm not going to give numbers here. I'm just saying exactly what they do. Slow down survivors as long as they're in the gas and for 2 seconds after they leave the gas. And he also has the antidote, which is a yellow bottle that speeds him or anyone who goes through it up. It also gets rid of any of the effects from the purple bottle. So, Clown, of all of these killers, is he anything like any of them? Kind of. He's kind of like Freddy. Just better. Freddy is a slowdown and he throws down a loop, but Clown doesn't need them to be asleep. And Clown can, like, just throw it at them at any time. Do I think they just took Freddy's power and just turned it into a throwable for Clown? No, I don't think that at all. But so far, going through these first, 12 killers? Yeah, none of them seem like they're, other than the obvious one, don't really seem like they've been a rip-off of another character's power, or, like, added them in. Alright, next we have Spirit. Spirit can go into phase walk, where she is invisible to survivors. She can't see survivors, however, she can still see scratch marks, and she can still hear them. When she comes out of the phase walk, she can attack, and that is her power. That's her entire power. That's it. Summed up right there. There's a little bit more nuance that I'm sure some Spirit main is going to get mad at me for, but that's it. That's the whole power. Now, once again, that's unique. There's nothing about that is something I would say any other killer has. I mean, it gives a similar effect to what Nurse does, but it's not phasing through walls. She still has to physically go through stuff, right? All right, so far we're doing good. So far, every killer has been decently original and not derivative of anything yet. The Legion, activating Feral Frenzy, increases their FOV, makes them move slightly faster. They're able to vault pallets. When they hit a survivor, they're injured and put into deep wound, and they get Killer Instinct on the location of other survivors in their terror radius. There's some other stuff, especially with the update, but that's pretty much the power. So, a killer that is guaranteed injuries can gain information on survivors and can vault pallets. Alright, cool. No other killer like that in the game. Not a single one. The Plague. Plague can shoot vomit that can affect objects, and if a survivor comes in contact with the vomit or the objects at any point, they start an infection rate. Once fully infected, they become injured and broken. The only way for them to cure this is they have to go to fountains and cleanse at the fountains. If the Plague goes to a fountain that was cleansed, she can activate the second part of her power, where her vomit now damages at a long range. She still has to charge it up. So, if you really want to be derivative, the Plague is just Huntress with extra steps. I don't think that's true, though. I think there's a lot more to it. She can get information and all this stuff and cause injuries, and if the survivors don't purge, then you don't get her power, right? You don't get the corrupt part. But if you really want to break it down, she's just Huntress with extra steps. Ghostface. This is where we start. This is the true start to this discussion. Ghostface. Ghostface can go into an undetectable mode called Night Shroud. He is undetectable to the survivors. He can crouch, and he can lean around corners. He can stalk the survivors, which fills up a meter, or it fills up their stock meter. Once fully filled, the survivor is exposed, and Ghostface can instantly down them. The survivors can reveal Ghostface by looking at him. Now, like I said, this is where this video truly starts, and the reason why is because if you really want to be derivative and say that this power is just an improved, quote-unquote, improved version of Myers, I would be inclined to agree with you. Now, there's more to it. And I think that's where this argument and discussion comes in. There's more to it than just that. He's not just Myers, but better. There's more nuance. Because Ghostface is trying to stalk you from afar. In 99, you'd be more meticulous and slow with it. And then once he gets the drop, then he exposes you and gets the hit. Myers is honestly just trying to expose you the whole... Or not even trying to expose you. He's just trying to tear up as much as he can. Stalk anytime he can, from anywhere he can. Ghostface tries to be a little bit more meticulous and thoughtful on where you're doing it at. But if you really want to break it down, at the end of the day, Ghostface is just a combination of Pig and Myers. On-demand stealth, the ability to stalk survivors and put them in an exposed state. Like, I mean... You can't get more, I just cobbled two abilities together than that. Also, he can crouch, just like Pig. Demogorgon. Demogorgon can place portals around the map, anywhere it wants. It can then teleport between the portals. Survivors can get rid of these portals once they're used. Demogorgon's second power. Demogorgon will build up a shred where it will hold its hands out and then doing a dash forward. Any survivors caught in the hitbox will be injured. Now, the portals. You could argue that's just Freddy's generator teleport, but better. As for the dash, you could say, well, that's Pig's dash, but better. or worse, depending on who you ask, but it's just Pig's dash in a straight line. So technically speaking, he's just some a Freddy, some a Pig. Wow, Pig gets reused a lot the more I think about it. But yeah, you could make that argument. Once again, I wouldn't, but I think as far as originality goes, taking those two ideas and putting them together isn't a bad idea at all. I think it works just fine. Oni. Okay. Oni, when its survivors are injured, they drop blood puddles, or blood orbs. Oni can absorb these blood orbs. Once Oni reaches the max stacks of Blood Fury by absorbing enough blood orbs, they can activate, Yamaoka's Wrath, which puts them in a dash mode, that if they hit a survivor with their Kanabo once it's charged, it downs them instantly. The effect goes away once they pick up survivors. So, that's just Hillbilly with extra steps. Like, if we're being honest with ourselves, it's just Hillbilly with extra steps that doesn't get messed up when he hits a wall. That's all Oni is at the end of the day. Also, the fact that Oni is listed as harder than Hillbilly is a fucking crime. But that's it. That's all he is. Well, once again, the whole point of this is to be a little derivative. He already has more going on. He's got blood management, fury management, more snowball potential than Hillbilly ever will have. He's easier to control, technically speaking, because once again, you know, you can dash around the whole map and not be stopped. Nothing will stop you unless someone drops a pallet on your head. But, like, you can run into a wall and you're fine. But yeah, at the end of the day, he's just Hillbilly with extra steps. So they took the idea of Hillbilly, as far as his dash goes, and Myers as far as, like, tearing up goes. So Oni is just Hillbilly plus Myers. Deathslinger. Deathslinger is a range killer who shoots a spear that will reel in survivors. Survivors can break the chain if it's in between a wall. If the chain breaks, the survivor is injured and put into the deep wound. If they're already injured, they're only put into deep wounds. Once reeled in, the Deathslinger can auto attack and hit them. I'm sorry, basic attack and hit them and do a damaging save. So he's Huntress with a shorter range and a smaller projectile. And Legion because of the deep wound. So he's Huntress and Legion combined with a shorter range. That's what he is. If we're really getting into it. Next up. I hate this. Next up. Pyramid Head. Pyramid Head can place his blade on the ground, leaving a trail behind him. If the survivors interact with the trail, they become tormented. We'll get into what torment does in a second. While his blade is on the ground, he can swipe it forward and do a ranged attack. It goes through walls and through other materials. If the survivor's hit by it, they're injured. Now, if the survivor is tormented, they can be sent to a cage. If they're sent to a cage, no hook perks activate. If a tormented survivor rescues a survivor from a cage, their torment status effect goes away. If a survivor is on death or would be killed if put on a hook, Pyramid Head can just kill them. So, honestly speaking, Pyramid Head, honestly, is really unique. I don't think there's a single character other than, like, I guess maybe you could argue Deathslinger that's like him. But I wouldn't call him a combination of any killer. There's nothing like him in the game. However, until we get later on. Actually, exactly right directly underneath him. Oh, damn. Okay. Blight. Blight has 5 rush tokens at base. His first rush, he cannot attack. After the first rush, he can then he has the option to either charge at a survivor and attack them, or bounce into a wall and rush again. He can do this up to 5 times. I've never realized how simple Blight's power is to explain, considering he's one of the most complicated killers in the game. Regardless, so he's a high mobility killer that bumps into walls and gets an attack. Honestly, Blight's actually pretty unique too, the more I think about it. There's no killer like him. At all, actually. He's not really a combination of any killers. I mean, I guess you can make the argument he's like Oni, but without the insta-down, I guess. Twins! Twins is actually, once again, man, some of these are actually very simple to explain. I've never really realized that. Twins! While you're playing Twins, you play as Charlotte. You can activate your ability to send Victor out. Once Victor is out, you play as Victor, who has 150% movement speed and can pounce on survivors. If the survivor is healthy, Victor will injure them and stay on them, giving them a bunch of status effects. If the survivor is injured, Victor will down them, go into a brief cooldown period, and then you can swap back to Charlotte to go pick them up. Wow, that was very simple. There's a couple other things, but that's the basic power. Honestly, I don't think Twins really has a allegory either. But this is the thing, right? Like, we're still at, like, the top of the list. We're starting to get to the bottom here, where some of these are going to start to feel like other killers. Especially when I get as petty as I do when I describe them. But yeah, twins are pretty unique. There's really nothing, like, about them that any other killer can do. Even in the future, really. Well, technically there's one thing, but we'll get into that. Trickster. Trickster can throw knives that stack up a laceration meter. After 6 or 8, depending on which patch you're on, he will injure the survivors. That's it. That's his whole power. So he's Huntress, but instead of one thing hitting you, it's 6 or 8. There's also main event, but we don't talk about main event. So he's just Huntress, but he takes longer to down you. Uh-huh. Okay. Alright, yep. Newer killers are definitely more unique. Definitely. Nemesis! Okay, alright, this one... Alright, good. Nemesis... Nemesis starts off in Tier 1 of his tentacle. When he hits a survivor, the survivor becomes infected. Once enough survivors become infected, he will tear up the tentacle. At Tier 2, he can break pallets with it. At Tier 3, he moves at his normal base speed while it's readied. And it also increases the range slightly. Nemesis also has zombies that do the same thing his tentacle does, however, he does not get mutation rate from the zombies hitting people. The tentacle can go over objects and hit the survivors. So, technically speaking, with the exception of the zombies, Nemesis is Pyramid Head plus Myers. Now, anyone who plays Nemesis will tell you that's not true. He's not just those things. There's more to it, because Nemesis can hit over objects and Pyramid Head can hit under and through objects. And the tiering system is different than Myers because it doesn't make him like an unstoppable god and he's permanently there. But if you really want to break down what the power is at its core, he is just Pyramid Head plus Myers. Pinhead, the Cenobite. He can send out a chain. If the chain hits a survivor, more chains spawn and slow the survivor down. There's also the Lament configuration that if the survivors wait too long, a chain hunt happens where hooks just spawn from everywhere and start slowing the survivors down. So he's like a ranged version of Clown. Now, I will admit the slowdowns, the inherent slowdown is something. But yeah, he's basically just a ranged version of Clown. To be fair, I think people still say that to this day. But in the end, I'd say Cenobite is actually pretty unique. Probably one of the most annoying killers in the game. Artist. Artist can place a crow... this one actually might take a minute to explain. Artist can place a crow down. If a survivor is hit within a certain range of the crows and there's no objects in between, the survivor is injured. If the survivor is hit through an object or from a longer range, the survivor is surrounded by crows. If they are hit with crows again while surrounded by crows, they take an injured state. This can down them, etc., etc. So, she's Trapper, because he can put traps down at loops, combined with Huntress, because she's a ranged killer. Once again, I don't agree with that statement, but if I was to ask myself, like, what is she a combination of? How original is her power? Those two come to mind as to what she can do. She can trap loops, and she can do ranged hits with her crows. Just how it is. Sadako. Here's where things start getting a little bit more fun. Sadako can demanifest, getting rid of her terror radius and making her undetectable. However, she still can be seen from a certain distance away. While demanifested, she can also teleport to TVs around the map. If a survivor is in range of the TV, they get a ongoing stack. If they reach max stacks, Sadako can down them and instantly kill them. When Sadako leaves demanifestation, she phases for a minute and then she can normally M1. So she's Wraith, like literally just Wraith's power without the invisibility, combined with like Pig's slowdown effect, or maybe even Freddy's slowdown effect, one of the two. So yeah, she's not even really that unique either. I remember people saying this when she came out, by the way, and I think people still do say this. She's kind of just like a mismatch of the killers. Dredge. Dredge can teleport to lockers. He can also leave behind a remnant. He moves slower while the remnant is active. He can teleport back to the remnant. If a survivor walks through the remnant is gone, and he still stays slowed down until he notices. He also builds up Nightfall, which is a status effect that once full, from injuring survivors, hooking survivors, etc., etc., Nightfall happens. The survivors are put into the dark. They can't see too far in front of them, and they can't see where Dredge is coming from. They can hear him, but they can't see him. So that's combining Chain Hunt from Pinhead, because it's like a passive thing that he gets as the game goes on. The teleports from Freddy and Demogorgon, more like Freddy. And then an anti-loop that he can teleport back to. That's unique. That's pretty unique for Dredge. I will say that. It's not very good, but it's unique. Wesker. Wesker has 2 dashes. He can dash forward. If he catches a survivor in the dash, he will either hit them against the wall or throw them, depending if a wall is in range. After he gets the grab, he will infect them. Once they are infected with Ouroboros, after a certain amount of time at full infection, the survivors are hindered. He can also vault over pallets with his power. So he's Plague, because of the infection. Nemesis, because of how the infection is taken away. Legion, because he can go over pallets. And Nurse, because he has 2 dashes. You could argue Blight more so, since they're straight line dashes. I'll say that. So he's Blight, Plague, and Nemesis. Okay. The Knight. Knight can summon 3 guards. I'm not going to go into what all the guards do. It's kind of irrelevant for the point of this. He can summon 3 guards. They chase survivors, break pallets, etc., etc. That's, in essence, his entire power. There's more to it. As a Knight player, trust me, I know that it kind of hurts to not hear the full thing, but that's really what his power is. He can plop down a guard, and it can chase a survivor. That's it. In essence, this power is just Nemesis' zombies, but he can control them. They're about as effective as that, too. I'm not going to lie to you. But that's pretty much it. Now, it is a little bit more unique, I will say, but this also brings me into the point of, it's not that no one thought of it, it's that people did. The guards are unique, 100%, for sure. Knight is a very unique killer, but people don't like Knight. People don't like playing against Knight. He's one of the least popular killers played, I think he's like the 5th. I think Larry is the 2nd, but we'll get into Larry here in a minute. Yeah, he's like the 5th least played killer in the game. I don't have Nightlight pulled up right now, but it's insane how not good he is, even with how unique he is. But even then, like I said, at the end of the day, it's just Nemesis zombies that he can summon. There's more to it than that, but, you can dress up a pig. It's still a pig, Skull Merchant. Okay, I'm going to try to explain this in the most simple way because I'm not reading the full ability description for Skull Merchant. Places down a drone. If the survivor gets in the drone range and is locked on enough, they eventually get injured. While injured, they get a trap on them. For every trap on survivors, Skull Merchant gets a speed boost, and the survivor is also slowed while the trap is on them. Boom. Okay, boom. Alright. So, she's Clown, Trapper, Hag. Yeah, she's Clown, Trapper, and Hag. And at the end of the day, she's a combination of those three characters. She slows down, she speeds up, she traps loops. She gets information, which no other killer does until we get to the next one. So, yeah, kind of not really, but yeah. So she's derivative of them three. Actually might explain. I just realized she's Clown, Trapper, and Hag. That might explain why so many people hate her. Hag and Clown together is probably not a fun combo to go against. And by Hag, I mean in the sense that she places down traps, not that she can teleport. Although that would be nuts if she could teleport to her drones. But yeah, she's... Once again, though, even with me saying that, I still would argue she's a pretty original, unique killer that nobody likes. Sorry to Jane, I'm sure, because she watches my videos. I know she does. Yeah. And I know that they love this character, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't. Once again, something no one thought of it, but someone did. Singularity. Singularity can place down bipod cameras around the map. He can look through the cameras and mark survivors. Once marked, he can look through them again, and if he hits a marked survivor, he will teleport them, instantly activating overclocked mode, where he can't be stunned by pallets, and he vaults and breaks pallets slightly faster. So he's... this one's funny. Technically speaking, he's Skull Merchant, but more interactive, because he places down things to get information. But he's also a teleport killer, so he's kind of like Demogorgon and Freddy to a degree, because he can teleport onto survivors. Once again, man, I keep saying this. There's no such thing as an original idea anymore. There just isn't. Now, here's the thing about Larry, because I would say Larry actually plays more uniquely than most every killer of the game. However, he is the second least played killer of the game, right above Twins. And the reason Twins isn't played is because they're clunky as hell. Singularity isn't played because of how unique his playstyle is compared to every other killer in the game. Why devote all this time to playing a killer that doesn't even get that much output when I could play someone like Pinhead or Wesker and get all these cool hug techs and actual like value out of my power? Alright, next up is Xenomorph. Alright, Xenomorph can build up a meter called Runner Mode. Once in Runner Mode, they get a tail attack, which is I don't know the exact range, but it's basically a ranged attack that goes over pallets and can injure survivors. Xenomorph can also go into tunnels around the map and come out of them at any point. They can also see footsteps while they're in there. And I know many people have said this. Xenomorph is just Demogorgon, but more powerful. Before the fucking Demogorgon mains say something. Yes, I know Demogorgon technically has better mobility. The point of this is to be derivative. But at the end of the day, Xenomorph is just Demogorgon, but better. Like, the only real difference is that the portals are preset. And I mean, the argument can be made that that's actually an advantage, because you don't have to waste time doing it. But yeah, so at the end of the day, the most unique killer in the game is Nurse. And Skull Merchant. And while I can agree that the last few killers have been slightly more unique than every other killer. Saying Chucky as a design is just they combined Ghostface and Wesker, and that's all they did. There's more to it than that, and you could throw Legion in there because of the going under pallets thing. There's more to it than that, and even if that's all they did, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's cool to see what happens if we do combine those powers together and take away other aspects of the killer. He doesn't have an inbuilt slowdown mechanic like Wesker. He doesn't have a guaranteed hit, basically, that Legion does. And he doesn't have, like, an exposed thing that Ghostface does, at least at base kit, because he doesn't, because of hubris. I'll mention that later. But, like, I don't think the fact that he is combining other powers doesn't make the character original. I think at the end of the day, that does make the character original. Like I said, a lot of these characters steal from other characters in the same game. Trickster, Nemesis, they steal from Huntress and Pyramid Head. Deathslinger, Pig was used for like 3 killers from what we said earlier. Like, Ghostface is just Pig in the sense of a stealth killer, combined with Myers in the sense of a stalking killer. Like I said, we're just at a point in this game's life cycle where we are going to compare the newer powers to older powers. I play League of Legends, and I know people don't like bringing it up, but that game has like 200 fucking characters. Every time they release a character, they get compared to other characters. It's just inevitable. Even if the character is completely 100% unique, they're going to get compared to other characters. It's just easier for our brains to process. But I don't think Chucky was an unoriginal cash grab. I really don't. I think they did a good job with him. God, I've been talking nonstop for like an hour. But that's the video. Let me know what you think. I know it was really rambly and really long. If you made it all the way to the end, fucking good job to you. I recorded this on Twitch, and my Twitch chat is actually... Hi Twitch chat. Hi, Marathia. But yeah, this is where I say the normal YouTuber things of like, subbing, and all that stuff. But do whatever the fuck you want. I don't care. I'm glad you made it to the end of the video. Another one will be out tomorrow. See you guys later. Bye.